OriginClear, it has an extremely clear mission. Why don't you walk us through its inception and kind of lay in there how fintech has played a role from the start?
Right. So from the start, we worked with a fund that by design, they take companies public from day one. So you're in the public markets and you raise all your money, which means you'll never have a VC. VC is like you're anathema, because the minute you're public, they're like, well, why am I talking to you? You already did it. You screwed the pooch. Mm-hmm. So then you're dealing primarily with retail accredited investors. And we became very, very good at raising money from retail accredited investors, which we've since leveraged into this unique position as the only water as a service player that regular investors can invest in with this oil well type model. So, but that didn't obviously happen overnight. When I say we, basically the team grew on two sides. One side was the technology side, and we acquired a company that is very strong in McKinney, Texas, and they build very large decentralized systems for a certain car company, a certain wholesale distribution company. We can't talk about any of them because that's that kind of client, right?
So kind of the ones that we've kind of been dancing around this whole time, right?
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. I really have no idea what you're talking about.
But I mean, help us understand like the overarching mission of OriginClear. We've talked about how you got there, the technology you're using, the way you're delivering it to the marketplace. But what is the overarching mission of OriginClear? What
we became was the clean water innovation hub. In other words, we see ourselves as an idea lab. If you were around in the 90s, Pasadena's Idea Lab, Bill Gross, great thing while it lasted. Well, we think that the water industry needs that. It's very incubation poor. So technologies are forced to kind of just beat it out on their own. It's not very friendly. Mm-hmm. And the first thing we've done is created this water on demand, and now we're beefing it up. Back in April, we merged our modular water systems unit in with it, so it gave it some revenue and more to come on that. So we're basically creating kids that go off to college and they end up hopefully on the NASDAQ and so forth and so on, and we just keep feeding more through and we start becoming good at it. So that's really the model that we've settled out as works very well, because OriginClear is inherently, because of my easily bored nature, we're constantly thinking of innovative things. So why not make that our business? And that's what it is. So we have our technologists. We also have really wonderful people at the corporate level, like Ken Berenger, who helped me create Water on Demand, deeply involved with our bench of amazing investors, really great CFO. We have a good small team. Eventually, once these companies turn into NASDAQ companies, that's of course our hope and dream. And I can point your audience to a January announcement we made on OriginClear's announcement page about an LOI to potentially combine with a SPAC, about which I can say no more than that. The LOI is the sum total of what I can say, but it does say that we are working on a plan to get these kids of ours properly set up with a great career ahead of them. That's kind of our mission. I did take a look at that announcement and had me thinking a little bit. And how would you differentiate yourself from like a Y Combinator style thing? How would you see yourself being different from the incubator, traditional technology incubator? I admire Y Combinator tremendously. The model is a bit different. It's more like young sproutlings that go to Y Combinator college and get kind of like triaged out, and you get the best of the best. In the water industry, what we have a lot of local water companies that are, because of decentralization, are becoming more and more important. And so these are more veterans. These are 55-year-old people. They have 20, 30 years ahead of them. They don't want to retire. And so there's an opportunity to take what they've got and either roll it up into one of our entities or to develop it as its own thing, depending on how unique the technology is, really. And so we're really working more with more mature players. We don't necessarily want to take them to the Y Combinator college. We kind of want to go, look, we got this. we're going to take you and you're going to go through Regulation A, which I love, the whole crowdfunding thing. It's very powerful these days. Or we're going to take you potentially on a fast track to NASDAQ. That's not simple. It's not simple. It's very hard to get on NASDAQ these days, but there are ways. So essentially, we will be your liquidity engineer. And
no pun intended.
Right? But the liquidity engineering is a term that I invented when I was actually trying to do exactly that during the post-dot-com crash for a group called Net Catalyst. Had some really great players. Anyway, being an ambulance and or a fire truck post 2000 was really frustrating because nobody listened to you. It was like whatever. It was chaos. But the term liquidity engineering stuck, and it's very true that that's what we're talking about here.
Well, you've hit on a number of things, and I think I'd like to shift over to understand how you're seeing this innovation and these innovative solutions benefiting the broader market when it comes to these folks wanting to continue to move forward throughout their experience.
I tell you that the model we know is as debased as it's become is the OTC, over-the-counter model, right? Raising money on the over-the-counter market does work. It's become more and more painful because there's been so much abuse. So it's not ideal. It does work. I think that what has emerged again is the strength of the Regulation A, which is non-accredited investors. I mean, you have wonderful success stories like Knightscope with a K. Knightscope, they have security robots. They raised $120 million from unaccredited investors. Look at Boxable. They've done a similar thing, right? Mm-hmm. So really great way to go. There you have to be a real marketer, man. You got to know your marketing cold. And now we spend a lot of time learning how to do that and building funnels and Facebook advertising, all the stuff. Well, what's great about Reg A is you can go directly onto the NASDAQ if you do it right. And I'm a strong believer that you have to get it. You have to go to the NASDAQ. That's the legitimate market. It's a tough market to meet the requirements, but that's also a benefit because once you're NASDAQ, there's a certain okay, you're legit. You get finance, you get institutional following, mm-hmm. You get real investors, you get a portfolio managers looking at you, things like that. So it's a different game. And at the end of the day, that's I think the gold ring.
And as I think about this, the U.S. isn't the only place that we're looking at water differently. How are you prioritizing all these projects that you're bringing in to OriginClear, especially with it being global and continuing to intensify?
Well, at the moment, we're doing kind of the first wave, right? I call myself an incubator, but basically we're taking the assets we've created to date, which generated roughly $10 million last year in revenue, up from about 4 the year before. So a nice big jump, which is unusual in water. It's very hard to jump that fast. And monetize those. And we need to have a first, these are the guys who blah, blah, right? Mm-hmm. Y Combinator is strong because they did a great job with Airbnb and Stripe and many others. They're the guys who, and you got to have that. So that's what we're focusing on right now. We're not bringing in new stuff until we've gotten that accomplishment under our belts, and we'll have walked the walk. And that's what we're in the middle of right now. Now, what does that mean? It means that people who are interested in becoming involved with water, the transformation of water, get to participate right now with what we're doing. And because we're still early stage, we give people participations that are just stunning, and they can tell we execute. So it's a great time to get a really good premium on your investment, really good, with people who are competent, because we still need those gold records on the wall.
I'm looking at this, and we've talked about prioritization, but really what it comes into, a lot of these things that we work with, sustainability and being able to continue to grow and make sure that it's scalable. How are you ensuring that these solutions you're you're bringing to market maintain the sustainability and continue to be scalable?
That's where capital comes in. We've put together an acquisition slate. Essentially, it's going to be buy versus build. You can't build this stuff fast enough. For example, water on demand, billing somebody on the meter, well, you better have network management software. What about if they stop paying? You can't do, I better go in and, no, it's like tick, 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 right? It's got to be that way. So fintech relies on software. And so there's the software side. There's also acquisitions for our supply chain so we can scale up without worrying about, we constantly run up against limitations that fabricators, I don't have the capacity, and it's like, okay, you know what? We're just going to we're going to do some vertical integration here. So we have a slate of acquisitions that, given a certain amount of capital, let's assume $20 million in cash plus X amount of stock, gets us, we've calculated, to $100 million incremental between now and 2026 in incremental revenue. And it's without counting the synergistic effect of all these divisions working together, but just acquiring fabricators, engineering companies, so that we don't have to hire engineers, a working team, right? Service companies for the operations and maintenance, and of course, software companies for the network management. All these things, we have that slate all ready to go. And at this point, it's all about, getting our investors on board with it, because we know we can execute. We've done it acquisition before. We know how to do it. And that's the solution, frankly. Scaling up is all about acquisitions. If you want to know the model that I loved was Cisco in the 90s did an amazing job of roll-ups because I was involved with some liquidity events in the 90s, and I saw a tremendous amount of destruction happen when the company that I was involved with got sold, and the people who bought it basically trashed. Cisco didn't do that. Cisco had this model where they would parachute a team in to the acquisition and do the very good at integration, and generally highly successful. That's our next lifetime, really, hopefully in 2024, is we really get busy with acquisitions.
If you were to pick out like one, you've had such a broad experience across many different areas, entrepreneurial as well as in the corporate environment. If you were to pick out one thing, one experience that stands out to you that really is helped shape the way you look at things, the way you look at these companies that you look to bring into OriginClear, what would that be and why?
The learning experience we had when we moved into water, we were technology focused, and we had a technology that migrated from the algae space, which was to extract the algae from the water. And now we were extracting sewage from water, great. And it used basically advanced electrolysis. And we had a technology specific business. And we slowly started to realize that, in the water industry, literally, and we heard this told to us in no uncertain terms, it takes 12 to 15 years for a technology to become adopted in the water industry. We're like, no, I don't think so. I'm not interested. And so ultimately, my co-founder, Nicholas, who created this technology, went off on his own, and we happily let him have what we developed to date. And he went on to do pretty well for him, which means he sold he made some sales, but not at the level. He and his partner, Michael, were very happy to do what they did, and then they succeeded, but it would not have been a great public company. What we realized was that we had to have a better commercial model in order to succeed at as I'm not going to say unicorn, because that's being immodest, but at least to be a $100 million company. Because once you're a $100 million company in the water industry, the PE firms love you, the big water companies buy you. That's kind of the level. To get there, licensing technology was never going to get us there. So that's when we turned to technology execution with the actual users, with the decentralized revolution, and the finance piece that makes it a commercial model. And I'm very comfortable with that. So that was an epiphany. There's a very good book called Inside the Tornado, which is about different stages of a tech lifecycle. What's interesting about that is at each stage, you have to be a different company, right? The very early stage with the early adopters, the kind of people who buy Newton PDAs, those people, that you have to be really wild and crazy. And then you turn into the strategic buyers, and there you become very whole product, and it's got to be complete and this and that. And then da-da-da-da-da-da. And each phase, you're a different company, and you got to essentially reinvent yourself in order to continue to appeal to the audience that is currently adopting you. And that was a change that we made, and we're very, very happy with it. We think that we're in a position to be the dominant player in the mid-range, self-reliant water treatment, industrial water treatment space with this financial. It's kind of like GM Financial, right? So GM Financial, GM can exist without GM Financial, but it's incredibly better, and they get so much business because of having GM Financial, in addition to, of course, much more profit.
Is there anything specifically that you want the audience to hear and understand about OriginClear?
It's been said it's a quote on a Forbes Council article, do what you will with that, but the person who wrote this said the first trillionaire will be in water. Well, we don't believe in that. We think there should be a million millionaires. In other words, we have this new tagline, OriginClear. New tagline is water is the people's asset. We believe that water is going to be huge. It's starting to generate unicorns already, but these unicorns are high level. They're PE firms. They're blah blah blah. They're not, or VC. They're not open to you, the ordinary investor. We are. We want to build a wave of adoption of decentralized water treatment by businesses, funded by these pay-per-gallon water as a service systems, funded by the everyday investor, who gets annuities and equity that reward him tremendously for being a pioneer in this area.
If you were to give one piece of advice and you had to narrow it all the way down to just one sentence, what would that be?
I have a motto, which is overkill works. And I use that a lot. Overkill works because you don't know what's going to work. But the one thing that I thought of right away when you asked that question was, don't hesitate to get in trouble.
Oh, I love that.
Invite trouble, right? And, use your wits, whatever, you'll get through it. But if you don't get in trouble, then you will not challenge the limits of your particular vertical. Mm-hmm. And you will remain mired in the business as usual. So get in trouble.
Now that made me think of one other question, right? Considering all the challenges that are going on in fintech, and you mentioned one with the SEC to be used as an example, what strategy would you recommend that these future millionaires, billionaires, and trillionaires that are diving in to fintech, what strategy would you recommend that they use to keep moving forward?
Okay, the first thing is to look at what Peter Thiel has said, which is you either have an N+1 business or a 0+1 business. N+1 is where you're building on existing. You're creating another Amazon business. Fine. You're leveraging, you're becoming another credit card merchant, although those are disappearing fast. But it's incremental, right? You should be able to make money, be profitable very quickly because you're just using existing momentum and nobody is considering it brand new. Or are you 0+1? In which case, you're going to have to think about, how do I break the mold? And most importantly, get the capital to do so. Because a 0+1 requires capital, no question about it. And you're going to have a pathway. Go to Y Combinator if you want. But I personally, if I were starting fresh today, I would go with the Regulation A crowdfunding model. I think that's the most powerful there is because it levels the playing field. If you're a good marketer, boom, as long as you can execute, you're good. That really enables really creative people to appeal to build, 10, 20,000 investors, each of which did $1,000 or $5,000. And pretty soon you got a big company and you're on the NASDAQ. So that is the path that I would take if I was starting fresh today.
Well, we've had a deep dive today, folks, with Riggs Eckelberry from OriginClear, and it is clear that the future of water is intertwined so deeply with fintech. And it's a journey that we should all be very attentive to. And Riggs, thank you so much for being on today.
Ted, it's been so interesting and a great pleasure spending a small hour with you.
I'm Tedd Huff. and we'll see you next time on Fintech Confidential.